Welcome, everyone. I'm Dan Rogers, the Executive Director for the Kelowna Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to our latest edition of Business Smarts. Here on Thursday morning, we have a very interesting topic, all concerned about fraud on an ongoing basis, but now with a shift to remote work, so many other issues have arisen as we deal with the pandemic and COVID-19. So we're really pleased to have a couple of guests with us that are going to help navigate some of those waters to help you from a business perspective, but even from an individual perspective going forward. I want to thank all those that have made our Business Smarts program possible, and those that are joining us from outside the Kelowna area for this online presentation. Also want to acknowledge those that make this possible, our many members of the Chamber, including CIBC, a platinum member of the Kelowna Chamber of Commerce. We're pleased to have with us a couple of guests that will be more formally introduced in just a moment. Jackie Wheeler, the Senior Financial Sales Rep from right here in Kelowna with CIBC, and some other guy, don't know how to pronounce his name. Sorry, we're having a little humor because Brett Crisco used to work for us here at the Chamber, so we're good to have him back as a member of the Business Development Manager for CIBC in the Okanagan. As mentioned, we'll more formally introduce them in a moment. Also want to thank our many members that make the work possible that we do. We can't do it without our loyal members, so thanks for the investment that continues from all of our members, businesses and organizations, not just in Kelowna, but outside Kelowna as well, as we work together to get through this current significant challenge that we're all facing around COVID-19. Particularly want to acknowledge Interior Savings BDO, the University of British Columbia, and MNP Accounting Consulting, our President's Circle members. As we continue to do weekly updates on Business Smarts, we're trying to get as much information to you to provide you with some helpful tips as you continue to navigate the waters around COVID-19 and running your business and organization. We have partnered with our other chambers in the Okanagan Valley under the umbrella of Okanagan. We've got this. We're sharing resources, particularly with some of the smaller chambers to help them. We are stronger together as a region. We want to ensure you continue the conversation. So if you're reopening and you want to share some information, please use the hashtag OK, we got this. Resources are available. Last week we had a couple of representatives from WorkSafe BC with us. They will be back. We'll get them back in a couple of weeks to answer any of questions you might have as we move into phase 2 of the province's restart plan. And we've established a specific site, a resource site on our website under Okanagan. We've got this, kelowna.org. You can find it off our main website page. Lots of useful tips there, including a general checklist, the areas you should be focusing on in building your safety plan. We just completed our safety plan here at the Chamber. We'll be posting it, and if it's helpful, you can take a look at that and replicate that for your workplace. Also, there are links to WorkSafe BC. If you haven't been there already, I suspect most of you have. They have sector-specific protocols that are available online. So some good work on a very short period of time by WorkSafe BC, and we'll have those managers back from the Okanagan Kootenays in a couple of weeks on Business Smarts. Just to let you know, we are recording this. We'll make it available afterwards on our site and share that URL. Those that have been with us before, you know that you can use the question and answer function at the bottom of your screen. But if you want to pose a question, you can also use the chat function, and you'll be able to share that with the panelists, and I'll help facilitate the session. So I want to bring in our guests now that have joined us. And particularly, I'm just going to start with Brett, because my apologies, I know how to pronounce your name, but Brett's no stranger to the Kelowna Chamber of Commerce. Brett Crisco is the Business Development Manager for the newly established Business Banking Division of CIBC in the Okanagan region. And when we get him back on the screen, or you can see it on your side screen, that barista is working very slowly. So he's got the visual background, looks pretty sharp there, but he's
working. Back to work, which is great news, right?
Excellent, indeed. He's also, as I noted, a former chamber manager. He was our sales business development manager here and a local small business owner previous to that. Jackie Wheeler recently transitioned from senior financial services representative business banking to an Imperial Service financial advisor at CIBC. She's at the Mission Park branch. She's been with CIBC for nearly 10 years and is actively involved in the community with a variety of charities. Jackie particularly, and Brett, thanks for both of you for joining us. I'll turn things over to you, Jackie, to move us through that. And I think, Brett, you're going to start us off.
Yes, you bet. And thanks, Dan, for having us today. This is a great opportunity. It's nice to be working with you again. And we're going to talk about fraud today and protecting yourself from fraud. And we'll give you some tips. And Jackie and I will kind of navigate through that. So let's start off, I guess. We'll kind of go over the agenda today. So first of all, thank you for joining us today to talk about how to protect yourself from fraud. This presentation is intended to inform you and help identify the common characteristics of fraud. So what we'll go over in this seminar is we'll define fraud and provide you with information so that you can identify it. We will also discuss the actions to take it if you have become a victim. Lastly, we will give you some tips that will hopefully empower you to avoid becoming a fraud victim. So let's start off and actually talking about fraud itself. So what is fraud? We're hearing more and more about fraud. Well, what exactly is it? Fraud occurs when someone gains something of value, usually money or property, from a victim by knowingly misrepresenting facts or information. Anyone can be a target of fraud, from students to retirees, from small businesses to major corporations. Here are some examples of types of fraud. Text and email fraud. Fraudsters try to gain access to your banking information through fake emails and texts. They will often ask you to share your PIN, SIN, or any other personal information that they could try and steal your identity. Debit and credit card fraud. Recently, fraudsters have been shoulder surfing as you enter your PIN at a store, and then the fraudster can act as an accomplice and distract you in the parking lot to steal your card. They may approach you and stating that you've dropped some money. They may bump into you, and now they have your card and your PIN. Identity theft, and this one's very common. Your personal information is stolen and then used illegally to apply for new loans or credit cards in your name. Your information can be stolen if you don't shred documents containing personal information. Personal information that has account numbers, address, date of birth, and information can also be stolen if you provide unnecessary information to unknown parties. There is no need to provide your SIN to enter a contest. That's just an example. Check fraud. Checks which don't have any value. For example, you've sold something on Kijiji and the buyers provided you with a check. This is far more than the agreed upon amount. They request you send back an overpayment and say, keep a little for yourself. This check is worthless, so you're out of the item plus the money that you've returned. Other common scams which we'll cover today include emergency scams, romance scams, income tax extortion scams, and online purchase scams. We'll go over these in more detail later in the presentation. The impact of fraud. Here are some ways that fraud can impact you. It can be costly. Canadians lose millions of dollars each year to fraud. According to the Better Business Bureau, in 2018, Canadians lost $121 million to scams. This is up from $95 million in 2017. It can infringe on your privacy and can affect your peace of mind. It can be time-consuming to report and recover your finances and information. And it may also have a negative impact on your credit score. To help combat fraud, it's important to stay informed, and let's discuss how identity fraud can and what you can do to protect yourself. A common type of fraud is known as phishing. With phishing, fraudsters pose as a legitimate business and ask for personal information such as passwords or banking information. There are different types of phishing scams. The most common one is email. Other types include smishing, which is over text, or vishing, which is over the phone. And those are real words, by the way. I actually did Google those. For example, you receive a call from the bank claiming that you have a fraud on your account and they need all your banking details in order to reverse the transaction. This is a form of vishing. The fraudster's goal is to gain your personal information and so that they can pretend to be you. Do not disclose any information. The bank would never call you and ask for your personal information. We already have that information on file. If in doubt, call the number on the back of your convenience card. Some phishing scams are also designed to get you to click on links or attachments that result in the installation of malicious software. This software could be used to collect your personal information, including passwords. So just some real quick things on how to identify a phishing scam. It can be difficult to identify a phish based on an email address, particularly when you use your mobile device. The easiest way to detect a phish is personalization. CIBC email addresses the client by name. Phishes use Dear Client or Dear Valued Client. CIBC would never tell you of a problem in an email and ask you to click on a link to fix it. So how to protect yourself? By being cautious if you receive unexpected emails, texts, or phone calls. These are requests that want personal information, not opening an attachment or a link from a solicited email or text message, as they may contain viruses and spyware. And lastly, watching for spelling and formatting errors. If you're in doubt, you can always call us at CIBC. We do have a 1-800 number, or forward the original email text received to fraud@cibc.com. Another common form of fraud is debt and credit card fraud, which occurs when your card is stolen and funds are taken without your consent. Card reading devices are used to obtain the electrical data from the magnetic strip on your card, and hidden cameras or false personal identification number pads are used to obtain your personal access code. A current scheme is where you hand over your credit card and receive a card that looks like yours in return, however, it belongs to someone else. Always check that the name on the card is yours when you're handed your card to someone else to swipe or tap. So what do you do for your debit card and how you can protect yourself? So the first one you can do is shield your PIN. When making a payment at a cash register, don't share your PIN with anyone and make it hard to guess, i.e. don't use your birthday, sequential numbers, or repetitive numbers. Not letting your card out of sight. Checking your bank statements regularly. This is a big one. If you're missing a statement, it could indicate that a fraudster has redirected your mail. Not giving credit card information away over the phone unless it's to a reputable merchant. And lastly, make sure to report any lost or stolen items immediately or use the lock your card function on the online banking if you can't locate your card. So that online banking for your lock your card, I've used that myself and I found that's worked well. So.
Me too.
Identity fraud. So this is a big one. So identity theft and fraud is the act of stealing and personal information and using it to gain a financial advantage. Once thieves have enough personal information, whether they retrieve it from unshredded documents in your trash, steal your wallet or purse, or gather information that you've posted on the internet, they may commit fraud to do the following. Access your bank accounts. Open new bank accounts and apply for loans and credit cards. Transfer bank balances, make purchases, all without your knowledge. So how to protect yourself from that? Don't necessarily share your personal information. Guard it. Do not give account or card information to anyone, whether in person or over the phone or online, unless you're confident to do so. Do not carry your social insurance card in your wallet unless it's necessary. I think this is a big one. For me personally, my SIN number, I actually keep it in a safe that's somewhere in my place. So I think any access to a SIN number is really something that you don't want. This next one's good. Create unique passwords and PINs for all applications. There are lists of commonly used PINs and passwords that fraudsters rely on. Don't use sequential numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, or the same numbers, 4, 4, 4, 4, or numbers that can be found in your wallet as your house number, your date of birth, etc. Also, common passwords are password, go figure, dragon, baseball, and these are some of the top 10 used passwords which are well known by fraudsters and that they use on a common basis. Always memorize your passwords and bank PIN numbers. Don't write down your bank machine PIN number or your online banking password. If you write these down somewhere, keep them in a safe place and do not carry them in your wallet or purse. Never give this information to anyone, even a CIBC employee. Our CIBC employees will never ask you for this information, so be suspicious of anyone asking for it. Personal verification questions, always keep those confidential. Do not share your personal verification questions answers with anyone, and do not disclose them in any emails. Giving your PVQ answers to any person or company places your finances and privacy at risk. CIBC will never send you an email requesting this information. Do not use these answers that you've previously used on the websites. And I think it's always important too to keep those actual answers different from different websites that you visit. How to protect yourself from this? Shredding or tear up junk emails and statements. If you don't want a pre-approved credit card, tear it up, shred it. Identity fraud often occurs by thieves going through trash looking for these offers. As well, tear up or shred any personal information you're going to throw away, such as receipts or as receipts that show your personal cards, card numbers, or any bank statements. This is another big one. I don't think people do this enough, and that's review your credit report. At least once a year, contact the credit bureau to check the accuracy of your credit report. If you've fallen victim to the fraud, also contact someone like Equifax immediately and these different credit bureaus to place flags in your account. Missing statements. This could be an indication that you're a victim of identity fraud, as a fraudster may have taken over your accounts and changed your address to redirect your statements. Check fraud. Checks, they're still out there, they're still common. Myself, I don't have that many around, but even with the advent of the electronic payment products, checks still account for billions of payments each year, making them a prime target for criminals. Checks can be used for fraudulent purposes in 3 main ways. Counterfeit. Checks not written or authorized by a legitimate account holder. Forged, meaning stolen check not signed by the account holder, or altered in some way. An item that may not have been properly issued by the account holder, but has been intercepted by the payee or in the amount of the item that has been altered. How to protect yourself from this? I think the big thing is reducing the number of checks in favor of electronic payments. And now with myself being on the banking side, I think I see the real value in the electronic payments, such as the wire payments, direct deposit, EFTs, and pre-authorized payments. Choosing envelopes that make checks hard to detect while in transit. This helps to minimize the risk of checks being intercepted while they're in the mail. Keeping check stock in a secure location. Destroying unused checks from closed accounts immediately. Prompt account reconciliation, so reconcile your statements as soon as they get received. When reordering checks, use a continuous set of serial numbers and only ordering certain amount of checks per each account. And lastly, reporting any old outstanding checks and suspected fraud on your account immediately. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Jackie, and she's going to go into a little bit more information about more common scams, especially in this COVID marketplace.
Okay, guys, so I will take it away here. So some of the scams that we're going to go through are happening today, so that's why we wanted to go over them with you. So this one here is called the emergency scam, and it's typically called that or the grandparent scam. So it's called both. It's when the grandparent receives a phone call from the con artist claiming to be one of their grandchildren. The caller goes on to say that they're in some kind of trouble and then they need funds immediately. Typically, they claim to be in a car accident, having trouble returning from a foreign country, or need bail money. The bail money one is the most common. One variation to the ploy, though, is that they have two people on the phone at the same time, one pretending to be the grandchild and the other a police officer or lawyer, to make the phone call seem more legitimate, but don't be fooled on that. It may be hard to hear them on the phone, and it'll prompt you to say, "Is that you, Johnny?" And when they do that, then the fraudster knows your relative's name, so don't do that. How to protect yourself with this one here is that you never want to send any money or provide your personal or banking details to anyone over the phone via text message or email unless you've verified and validated their reason for doing that. Confirm the person's identity by asking them a question that only he or she would be able to answer to you. You want to verify your grandchild's whereabouts with another family member, preferably if you're on the phone with them. You can be texting the family member at the same time. Ask yourself if the story actually makes sense for what you know of your family member. Be aware that most fraudsters attempt to create a sense of urgency so that you don't have time to think clearly, and so you want to slow the transaction down between the two of you. Take your time and verify this story. We do have websites to report it, but we have that slide at the end here. So other common scams, and this one's been popping up a lot recently, is the romance scam. So this one is terrible, terrible, terrible. So one of the top 3 scams that have been identified by the Better Business Bureau in 2018 was this romance scam. Canadians lost more than $22.5 million to these romance scams, but keep in mind that that was only what was reported. Most of the scams go unreported because people feel that they can't reclaim the funds, or they're very embarrassed to have been fallen victim to it. These types of scams become more common for online dating and social media websites. The fraudsters may ask for money to pay for a plane ticket to come visit the victim, or they have a sick family member, or they need care or in a desperate situation and they need your help, or they claim to need your help. They will say that they have trouble accessing their own funds and provide a variety of excuses for it. The fraudsters will be enamored with you very quickly, saying all the right things. Often they arrange to meet you to make the fraud seem more credible. The meeting usually doesn't happen or is postponed several times, and you will be strung along. Victims may feel very invested into this relationship, so they ignore all of the red flags, they ignore their common sense, and the warnings from trusted people such as family members, priests, their bankers, or the police as well. In some cases, the suspects will even attempt to get the victim to commit fraud on their behalf. So as a money mule, so they'll accept or transfer funds to the person and get them to pass it along, unknowingly, of course. So to protect yourself against these people, so on the dating websites, you want to be wary of individuals who are too close, too soon, and professing their love for you, and they've never even met you, and or requesting to borrow money. Don't share any personal information with someone that you just met. If something seems suspicious, investigate the person. You can do this by doing an image search of the admirer to see if their photo has been taken from a stock photo site or someone's online profile. Look for inconsistencies in their online profile by what they tell you. Watch for poorly written or vague messages. Sometimes they'll address you by the wrong name or a pet name. Often scammers are working with several victims at once. Never under any circumstances send any money for any reason. The scammers will make it seem like an emergency. They will even express distress or anger to make you feel guilty, but don't send the money. If you've already sent the money, stop the transaction wherever possible. And if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. Okay, the other one that's been popping up, and we heard this on the news and whatnot over the last little while, is the CRA scam. So the CRA scam, or the income tax extortion scam. So Canadians lost $6 million in 2018 to these types of scams. Income tax extortion scams involve a phone call or email from someone claiming to work with the CRA. They try to extort personal information or money from the victim, typically using threats or accusing the victim of owing back taxes. They may require you to send funds via wire transfer, email money transfer, Bitcoin, or ask for gift cards and you to read out the code on the back there. To protect yourself from this one, as you know, with the tax scams, remember that law enforcement and government bodies will never request payment via gift cards or money services of any kind. Never provide personal details about yourself or family members over the phone, via text or email, to someone who has reached out to you. The CRA will not send you an email or text to divulge any personal information. They already have all that on file. If a caller requests money, ask who is calling and document any information that they tell you for reporting purposes. Do not take any action on any links via email or text message. Call the CRA back or check your account online. Also, a few questions that you can ask yourself is, did I actually sign up to receive online mail? Am I expecting more money from the CRA? Does it sound too good to be true? And is the requester asking for information the CRA already has on file for me, such as your date of birth, your social insurance number, address, etc.? Okay, now this one is a subscription scam. So this one here is online purchases or subscription scams. In 2018, again, Canadians lost more than $13 million due to the online scams. Always read the fine print of trial offers. These may result in ongoing charges to your credit card for the full price of goods on a frequent basis. So for example, there is a free trial of an expensive cosmetic that could result in you receiving a full-size jar of the expensive cream, and then every month after that, they'll send you another one and they'll charge your credit card full price. Normally I see this one a lot with vitamins. If someone orders vitamins online, then they get the trial offer of these vitamins and then they keep sending them constantly monthly. A lot of times they come out of the US and then those are impossible to track down and try and get your money back. Okay, and then to protect yourself from these ones here, when you're shopping online, always buy from reputable companies. Be cautious when signing up for subscriptions, trial offers, contests, or free rewards. Also stay away from any of it really, and stay away from the pop-ups on there. Also stay informed by reading the reviews, terms and conditions on that website. This one here is the newer one, of course, given our situation and climate right at the moment. But for the COVID-19 scams, using seemingly legitimate COVID-19 related websites or links to introduce malware to your device. Recommending medical advice or offering fake products claiming to treat and prevent COVID-19. And how to protect yourself on this one is make sure that you understand the nature of the communication before responding and providing any personal or banking information. And watch the news. Okay, now this one here, if you suspect a fraud is happening to you, please take down all of this information. This is great information. So whenever you feel like you've been a victim of fraud, immediately report it. Gather all the information about the fraud, including any documents, receipts, copies of emails or text messages. Call your local banking center or come in person, or telephone banking, or email at fraud@cibc.com. Contact the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre on the number there or online. Report the incident to your local police. This is important because it ensures that they are aware of which scams are targeting their residents and businesses. Keep a log of all the calls and record all file and occurrence numbers that they've called from. If the fraud took place online, say through Facebook, Amazon, or the dating website, be sure to report the incident directly to that website. The details can be found under report abuse or report an ad. Victims of identity theft should also place flags on their accounts and report to both credit bureaus, as Brett said earlier, to Equifax and also TransUnion. CIBC also has, you can see on the slide there, that we can help if you have been a victim of fraud and you have met all of your responsibilities. We at CIBC promise to return 100% of the money you've lost in your CIBC accounts. So, and then visit the CIBC's digital banking guarantee. It's good, even if you don't bank with CIBC, always go onto your institution's website and make sure that you're protected. Okie dokie. So this one here, so a few different tips and tricks for you guys today. Always select unique passwords that are hard to guess and keep them safe. Update your passwords at least once a year and include uppercase, lowercase, symbols, and numbers. Don't use the birthdays and those other passwords that Brett said earlier. Leverage security features on your phone if you use your phone a lot, such as the biometrics, so your face recognition, your fingerprint, and maybe use a two-step verification, so text you a temporary code. Monitor your accounts regularly and your credit report at least once a year. So you can request from Equifax Trend, you can request your credit bureau once a year and they send it to you for free. Keep your antivirus, anti-spyware software, and everything, firewalls up to date on your computer, on your phone, everything that you're using that has your personal information on it. And then stay on top of current scams. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, scams are continuously evolving, so it's important to stay on top of them. If it seems too good to be true, it definitely is. And here's some helpful resources there, guys. So on CIBC today, or CIBC.com, you can find a tip sheet that highlights some of the scams that we've talked about today. You can also find examples of recent frauds to go through. If you go to the Canadian Bankers Association webpage, you can sign up for a monthly newsletter that provides an example of new fraud schemes and how to protect yourself. Always handy to do. Finally, you can read online or order a hard copy of the Competition Bureau's Little Black Book of Scams. This book details some common scams in simple, easy to understand language. So in closing, the information that we have provided for you today is not meant to frighten you at all, but to give you some tips to recognize the characteristics of a scam. Remember, don't fall prey to the urgency featured by the fraudster. Slow things down. Ask trusted contacts for their opinion. And remember, if it's too good to be true, it probably is, and use common sense.
Great, thanks, Jackie. So we'll shift to the second part, and maybe what we'll do is we'll just come back to the main screen. Jackie, if you don't mind, just stop sharing.
Right.
Make that change. That's no problem. Bring Brett back in. He's got the slowest barista ever. She hasn't moved at all in the background there.
Well, I was going to offer you a virtual coffee, but it might take a while, that's all. And it might be cold, so.
No, I appreciate the information, and we'll take you up on the coffee now that we're into phase 2. I want to let those that have joined us, if you want to ask a question to Jackie or to Brett, use the Q&A button at the bottom, or you can use the chat if you want to share a story or a challenge or a bit of a scam that you've come across. But to kick it off, we had a couple of questions. I'll just put it out there, and then Brett or Jackie, you can respond. Have you seen, and are you getting a sense of an increase in the scams and the fraud that is occurring because of the shift to more remote work and more reliance on technology with respect to responding to COVID-19? Are the institutions, and are you getting that? It's probably a good question for the authorities, but what's your sense of is there an increase in activity that people need to be aware of?
The increase, I'll take that away. The increase in activity, there's a lot of, because a lot of people can't come into the branches right now, even like with CIBC, with other institutions, because they've closed. A lot of people are calling up and saying, oh, I lost my bank card, I need to get it replaced, can you send one out? Meanwhile, they've gone on to someone's online banking and changed the address so they get their new bank card, right? So there's a lot of an account takeovers. So we had one recently where someone was in Ontario, they were out here, supposedly they were out here and they were trying to withdraw some funds out of their account. They couldn't provide their bank card or ID, so our frontline tellers, they're all aware of these situations and scams as well. So it didn't sit right with her, so she went back to her manager, and it turned out it was someone who was trying to take over the account. So there's little things like that that we've had to be really aware of, hyper aware. If you don't know your client, you need all the verification.
Great. Just to know, we will make the presentation available, and I'm assuming there's hyperlinks built into the presentation, Jackie, as well? Or, so you can...
There is some
Okay.
hyperlinks, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll make that available and we'll send it back out to those that have joined us this morning for this Business Smart session. So we'll make sure all that information is available. There is a reference, you know, when you talk about individually protection, I'm curious from a business perspective and whether you're engaging businesses that are, you know, the priority is focusing on a safe environment for their staff and their customers, but increased focus on security and fraud. Is there a checklist, or are you giving advice to businesses that these are some of the things you need to think about? We've had examples of organizations when they have remote workers that they never ever thought they would, but now working from home and potentially from their PCs. Are there things that you're hearing that businesses should consider putting into policies? If you're putting in a return to work health policy around COVID-19, there also makes sense that you would have a checklist. Are you hearing from businesses that are concerned because their workforce is now working remotely and that ability to have the firewall and protection may not be there? Are you getting some sense of that?
Yeah, I'll kind of take this one. I think the checklist, yes, I think normally when you're at work, if you do get, let's just say example as an email that looks suspicious of that, you're now, you know, you have an IT department, you can run that by someone. Now you're at home and the phishing scams and emails go up. I probably get at least 3 or 4 a day, it seems, and I mark them as spam. But from the business level, what we've heard is that not only, you know, there's limited firewalls, but there's also just to be asked more questions, not to be in so much of a rush to get, you know, to click on a link that you get an email from another client perhaps, but just to kind of question that. Even though you're at home, you're kind of in a relaxed atmosphere, but still to be aware. And especially now, you know, you're at home, you don't have a firewall, but these links that you get, especially on the phishing side, when you get those emails and they're just generally like dear valued client and they're not personalized, those are the big ones that businesses, you know, really should red flag, especially on the email side. And that's why on the business side, we're really recommending more secure payments, more online payments, electronic funds transfer, direct deposits. And we really want to coach our clients, our business clients, to go in that direction, because you can't wait in line at the bank anymore in terms of putting in a cash deposit or anything like that. We're really trying to encourage those online payments, and that can be managed. But yeah.
Yeah, so if you have some helpful tip sheets, we'll make those available, and or if you have them on your site, we'll certainly provide some hyperlinks afterwards to those that have joined us. Because I think one of the comments that we had from one of the small members is they've got remote workers who now are communicating electronically that never actually did that prior. So now there is communication is going out and coming back in, and so reviewing those protocols is an important step for some of the small businesses that are doing that. So appreciate the comment. Jackie, one of the other questions that had arisen in some of the discussion with some of our members was around, are we insulated? Are we any different in the Okanagan as compared to the rest of Canada? Is fraud occurring on a regular basis? Are you getting exposed to it with clients in the valley to the same degree as it happens? Is this a global issue, or are we somewhat isolated from what might be occurring in some other centers?
So I think for us here in Kelowna, we're well informed. We have all the information that I feel that we need, or that we have the resources available to us. Some places like Toronto or Vancouver, they're more susceptible to the fraud taking place because they're larger centers, and sometimes like our frontline staff or someone else, they've missed the signs perhaps or the red flags that are popping up when discussing things over the phone. A lot of times they don't go into the banking centers, they just do it themselves, right? So I think in Kelowna here, like we have had scams, we have had the people come in from Ontario or out of province, right, that try to do the account takeovers. However, we've been very successful and we've stopped it all.
Is there sharing that goes on either locally or maybe it's at the national level with financial institutions where there's a new initiative on fraud, or has that just come from the RCMP and those types of agencies, or is there a joint effort by the financial institutions to crack down on what, I mean, we were saying like 20 million in 2018 almost, and
Yeah, about the 22. So for us, we have it again on our website where you can know what the scams are going on. The RCMP do post that regularly, and then between like on our level, we keep it within our community. So if we somehow have a fraud here, we shoot it out to all of BC and Alberta, because if there's someone that's traveling from branch to branch to branch, trying to say cash a check or get a bank card or something like that, we do our best to make everybody in the area aware. If we do have contacts outside, then we try and make them aware of the situations as well.
One final one we had, but I want to let folks know if you have a question, we might be able to wrap this up early. We certainly value everyone's time, so want to give you an opportunity in a moment just to wrap things up, Jackie and Brett. But one other question we had, and then if any folks want to get into the Q&A, if you want to do that now, with respect to businesses that post information about their employees, names, etc., emails on their own websites. It's certainly easy for bots to kind of mine for that information so that they get information. And you hear it constantly, some of the small businesses, should I put my name out there or should I just have a generic email? Is there any guidance you could give to businesses or suggest? There's likely no way to prevent people that are determined to find out who is leading a company. But I think one good example, Brent, you remember, so my name as an example is out there.
Rogers emails.
Yeah, so when the boss sends an email to someone, it looks like, hey, the boss needs help.
Yeah.
Any guidance?
Kept asking me to pick up your dry cleaning.
Yeah. Any guidance you'd give for small businesses or those entrepreneurs? Do you put your own name out there or a general email? Because there are bots that mine for that information, right?
I think with the general inquiries, I think, well, first of all, I back up. I think it's a comfort level, first off. I mean, as a business, you want to put yourself out there and you want to talk about your team and who they are. I see a lot of times, as an example, on the website, it would be Brett K. Just the initial, the last name, and then all the inquiries go to inquiries at businessabc.com. So I would say there's a comfort level that has to be explored there. But you're right. Bots are notorious, especially with your example of your name. It's very common. The last name's Rogers. Mine last name isn't as common, so it's a little bit easier, I guess, in that case. But I think it all has to do with the comfort levels that each business is, because I think the businesses, they really want to tell their story, and I think they have to they do have to put themselves out there. But I think there's still safeguards, whether it be certain, a filter or buffering system like a general inquiry that hopefully can filter a lot of those specific bots that do put those random emails out. And then they can hopefully get redirected to the right people.
Great. The other quick one that we had was any guidance you can provide on people in the protecting passwords when you have a business that may need to access multiple accounts and multiple people might need to access. So they need to, they don't have all the passwords readily available. So they may want on a secure site to have those passwords so multiple staff could access them. And one of the things where we're noticing is there's more commerce going on electronically, so there's more site. This is an example. Now we have Zoom. There's passwords associated, but multiple staff may have access. Any guidance? There's software available to manage, protect passwords, or is it just the level of kind of value that businesses and comfort level in storing and making passwords available for accounts that multiple staff members may use? And this would be, as an example, you know, on a Zoom platform where you have multiple staff, but they still need a password and account. So where do you store that information, particularly if an employee comes and maybe departs? Hard copy or software that's available to protect that? Any guidance you would give small businesses around that?
Jackie, did you want to go with that?
Yeah. So generally, like how we have small business set up, whether it's one person or 5 different people. So you have your main person on the account, and then if anyone else is needing the access to the account, what we do is we set them up as what we call a delegate on there. So then they have their own unique card number, and then they would have their own unique password attached to that card number with the owner's approval, of course, coming in with them, so that every person associated with that company would have their own unique card, their own unique password. If someone ends up leaving that company, then that card is then disabled and they are removed from that company. So then there's no sharing of the passwords at all. If they want to store their own passwords for themselves, there is a program, I believe, on either the phone or online that you can secure your passwords. There's something on there.
Yeah, I think one of the examples that was used was using the same password in multiple platforms. So on passive accounts, like as an example, even on Zoom, where you're not communicating, but you use the same password that you use on some of your other secure channels. Not a good idea. So that was kind of, I think that someone said, because they got the password on a non-protected site and then they use that to mine for information. So some good advice. So let's wrap things up. We've moved through most of the questions that we had. Any closing comments? Jackie, we'll start with you and then turn it over to Brett to wrap things up.
No, just if ever anything pops up, or if you're unsure, if you have something that doesn't look quite right, always go with your gut. If it doesn't seem right, like go to your local institution, show them, is this actually from you, or give them a call. 9 times out of 10, it's not from that institution at all. So just always use your instincts with everything that you do.
Thanks, Jackie. Brett, anything further? Yeah, I would just say one of the points that we brought up today was, especially if you get phone calls, there is a number that's on the back of your customer care card. So whatever FI that you, financial institution that you do deal with, if you ever get a specific, a strange number, always look at the back of your card to just verify that number. You can always call. There is a number on the back of your client care card. Use that as a resource. It's there. It's a physical reminder. I think that was a good tip, and that's something that I gleaned from this presentation as well. So after leaving this, if folks have some follow-up questions, we can make your contact information available to them so they can follow up with you.
For sure.
Excellent. All right, we have no further questions in the queue, so we'll wrap things up, give a little bit of time back to folks today. I want to thank both Jackie and Brett very much for joining us. Thanks for spending the time and providing that information. Thanks for having us, Dan. Nice to see you again. Excellent, and great to see you. I do want to remind folks as we wrap things up, next week we're going to have the Federal Minister Mona Forte, Minister of Middle Class Prosperity and the Associate Minister of Finance. You can register in advance. During COVID, we aren't charging for participating in any of our activities, so it's a free session with the Federal Minister talking about the federal government's approach to responding to COVID-19 and potentially a few questions around the long-term financial forecast for our country. Given the significant amounts of dollars being poured in responding to COVID-19, what will that mean in the longer term for our debt and deficits in the short term?
So we're looking forward to that, to chatting with the federal minister Monday at noon, and we'll use the same platform. But you have to go online to the Chamber website to make sure you get registered for that event. And next week's Business Smarts, we'll shift gears a little bit. We have a number of representatives from BDO, including partner Christine Simpson, currently chair of the BC Chamber Board. She also leads BDO's non-for-profit group. So it'd be great for nonprofits to join us. We're seeing some significant numbers coming in around some challenges for nonprofits, many that may not continue through the current crisis. So she'll be able to speak to that, but she'll give some tips, as will Ryan and John, that are helpful as businesses move into phase 2 and try to reach the point of a long-term sustainability plan and moving forward and responding to COVID-19. We look forward to that. As always, make sure you share. If you like what you're seeing, let us know. We're on most of the social media channels, from Instagram to Facebook, or connect through our LinkedIn account. And you can also sign up for our newsletter. We're doing it twice a week, keeping up to date. Our COVID update went out this morning. We're giving up-to-date information on what government programs are being put in place. We're also sharing some good news stories of how people are responding. So if you are responding as a business to COVID-19 and want to share your reopen strategies, plans, and successes, please do that. We'll make sure that gets out as we try to really reinforce to the business community the value of investing and buying local. It will keep more dollars in the Okanagan Valley. So please share this information, sign up for our newsletter, and keep up to date. So in closing, I want to thank Brett and Jackie for joining us. Again, this will be posted because we have recorded today's session, and we'll communicate back to all the participants as well with all the information that was provided. Thanks very much for joining us, and have a great day.